Hey pal, and welcome to season 3 of I've Got Your Back, the podcast. This season is all about well-being. I am so passionate about my own well-being, and I'm so passionate about sharing all of the tools that I've learned over the years that really can improve your overall well-being. So there'll be 8 different themes and 8 different areas of well-being that we'll cover off. I really hope you enjoy it, and let me know your feedback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 3 of I've Got Your Back, the podcast. I am so excited about this interview today because this is a woman who I admire very, very much, has been a constant, believe it or not, in my life as I was reflecting and preparing for this for over a decade, which is hilarious. So we're both feeling quite old. But Mel Browne, hello, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hey, so good to see you. Thanks for having me. Can't believe it was a decade. That was nuts.
I know. We're going to.
We were obviously 12 when we.
Yeah, we were 12 when we met. Yeah. Absolutely. I'll share the story in a second about how we met and what's happened in that sort of decade. But essentially, as I explained at the beginning of this season, this is about well-being and all the elements of well-being. And I think actually meeting Mel and learning through Mel and her work, I realized that financial well-being is such a critical part of your overall well-being, but it's one of those ones that I was never taught it in school. I never really got any advice around it. I genuinely hate spreadsheets. Genuinely. I've sort of fallen in love a little bit more thanks to Mel, but and always found like numbers and anything like that quite difficult, and I always shied away from it. So for me, understanding that financial well-being is such a core pillar of your overall well-being, I just had to invite Mel on because she is someone that I've learned from and someone that's been talking about this for a very, very long time, especially with women. So I know there's a lot of women that listen to this podcast. So that's what it's all going to be about today. And I'm sure there'll be other stories weaved in and other sort of lessons just through Mel's journey. I've been an entrepreneur, an author, speaker, like all the things that Mel's going to share her story in a second. But what I thought it'd be really good to do is share how we actually met. So this is going back, as we said, over a decade ago. And I was in Sydney and through Janine Gardner in the Little Black Dress group. So shout out to Janine, of course. Such a significant group that came together at that moment in time. And I was working in my full-time job at the time with Hewlett Packard. And I heard about Janine's group and I just wanted to be involved. I just loved everything about it, bringing women together to learn, to inspire, to help one another. And actually, I think one of my first events was actually Mel's book launch. Called More Money for Shoes, and she's written many books since then, but that was the first one with Jodie Fox from Shoes of Prey, who was just like this amazing other entrepreneur, like who created like a bespoke shoe business where you got to design your own shoes. I mean, thinking back then, like two of you together in that event,
the tech that she would have needed, and yeah, it was such a great event, and having all of those women in that room all geeking out on business. It was so good.
Yeah. I remember, obviously, I was building Arbonne at the time, but I wasn't like a full-time entrepreneur. So for me, being in a corporate job, having this side business and just being exposed to you and Janine and Jodie and all those other women, I was just like, wow, this is like amazing. So that was the very first time I met you, was your book launch. So I came away with a book and just like, oh, this is great. More money for shoes. Okay, great. What does this mean? Which at that time I was obsessed with shoes. So that was funny. So that was the first time. And then I remember, I think it was probably within that year or the next year, as my business was starting to grow with Arbonne, I was like, I really need an accounting because I really don't know what I'm doing. And at that, you obviously owned and ran your own accountancy firm. So I said, Mel, can we have a conversation? I need a really good accountant. And I'll never forget it. Like, you were so present with me, like, and it was in North Sydney, and we sat down and you were like, 30-minute session, free of charge, let's have a conversation. Yeah. And honestly, it just eased everything for me. And you just were like, okay, you have to set up this, you have to do this, you have to do this. This is how much it's going to cost. I was like, done. And I remember just coming out of that feeling so confident and sort of empowered in, this woman knows what she's doing. Thank goodness.
Yeah, good.
I was like, yes.
Yeah,
but just feeling so good. Like, and obviously you were my accountant then for the next 10 years until he sold the business, which you can share that story as well. And then I think I'll leave the last part. There's another significant moment, but we'll come to that later because it's to do with your program that you're running now. But yeah, thank you so much, Mel. When I reflected on this, I was like, wow, and yeah, that conversation, actually, there was another significant conversation after sort of 5 years in, as I was building Arbonne, and I was making, like, my goal was to basically replace my income with HP, and it was getting to that point, and I booked in a meeting with you, and you were like, it's time, you're getting double taxed, it's time for you to leave. And I was like, what? And it was weird because, like, obviously I was goaling for that, to leave my job. I was like, I want to leave my job before I turn 30, and you were like, it's time. And you were the only one that just looked me directly in the eye, and you were like, for tax purposes, it's time.
I think it was that confidence boost too, where you could do it. Like you were already earning it. It wasn't even like, it was so easy for me to see. Sometimes when you jump, you take the risk and then you build the rest of it as you go. Yeah. I remember it. So I remember walking out just a bit in shock, and I was like, oh, this is it, Michelle. This is actually it. And and I've never been back in a corporate job since that moment. So thank you, Mel. There was a lot of significant pieces of the puzzle that you were a part of. So I really appreciate you and being that sort of guiding light, especially when it came to financials and stuff. No, thank you. And I have to confess that the only thing that's changed now is the way that I do it. What you said around feeling confident and feeling eased and feeling empowered, and all those words that you used, I was like, that's still today everything that I want and that I'm all about. So I love that's your words as you describe all those interactions.
Yeah, absolutely. So could you just share with people your story, like how has Mel got to here? If you could just touch on a little bit your story, your entrepreneurial journey, business story, and why you are here now as someone who is such an advocate for financial well-being, especially for women.
Yeah, so I'm an accidental everything. Accidental entrepreneur, accidental author, accidental accountant, like accidental everything. So I wanted to be a lawyer when I left school, and I'm the firstborn. So when I got about 3 or 4 years into it and realised it so wasn't for me. But firstborn, didn't want to let my dad down, people pleaser. So he said, there's some tax in accounting. I'm an accountant. Why don't you do that? And I was so lost that I went, fine, I'll just do it. So that's why I called myself an accidental accountant. I kept doing that for a while, but I just happened to be good at it. I didn't love it. And I divorced my first husband at 33. And that, I think when you do those big things, you look around and you decide, well, what do I actually want to do with my life? And I kind of blew up my life when I divorced him. So he turned to me and said that I would never make it on my own. And as a consequence of that, I gave my entire divorce settlement and every cent in my business and personal account to charity, because I never wanted him to say that any of my success was because of him. And I say I blew up my life because, I've got fundamental Christian parents. As a result of divorcing, they didn't speak to me. I didn't have any dollars. So I had to go deeply in debt for wages and salaries and super and just the cash flow of running my business. Didn't have money for bonds. So I had to move into a shared house with 4 friends just to make ends meet, which I was grateful that we had that, but it wasn't cute. It was like a moldy basement, tiny bedroom. But as a result of that, it made me realize that, I was comparing myself to people at the same age in their early 30s who were having babies and buying houses. And I felt such shame and such, I'm an accountant. I'm supposed to be good at money. And what a stupid financial mistake. And I decided as a result, one, I needed to build myself back up, both financially and as a person. But also I wanted to actually, for the first time, take control of my life and understand what I wanted to do. And so I started studying an MBA and started reading and figuring out what else was out there. And I realized I loved business. And the conduit for that just happened to be an accountant. And more than that, I wanted to help women. So women were starting businesses faster than the blokes, but the stats were that we weren't starting them anywhere near as successfully or profitably as the guys. So I wanted to use all of that breadth of learning that I had to help women, not just with their taxes, but to build great businesses.
Yeah.
And eventually that also became wealth creation as well. And fast forward to my 40s, when I sold my accounting firm and I actually had the choice to work or not, from starting at that less than nothing in my 30s. And today, what I'm all about is helping other women become financially literate, but more than that, become financially confident and to have that knowledge and empowerment to actually make really smart decisions for themselves.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. It's such, I mean, even talking about that decade of your life, we spoke about how we met a decade ago, but from your early 30s to your early 40s, how incredible what you achieved in that. Like, it's just amazing. It just gives me goosebumps. Every time I hear that story, I'm like, wow. And I'm sure will help a lot of people listening, just hearing your story of what you've created.
And I always tell it because I want people to understand that you can come back from where you're at. And I still firmly believe you can do that now. Yeah. It's just having the knowledge for how I can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very clear why you're passionate about this. And obviously you sold the accountancy firm, then you went out on your own with Laws and by your side, of course. Shout out to Laws. We love you.
My employee for almost 14 years now. Insane.
Wow.
Like insane.
That's amazing. So it's such a great partnership because you're so like chalk and cheese. It's the best.
Oh,
it's just
so different. Absolutely. That's why it works. Yeah. We had a session today where I'm big picture. She's details. Like she just wants to kill me sometimes. She's like, calm down here and make some decisions. And I'm like, oh, you're killing me. Why do I have to be stuck in the details? But you're right, it just works.
Yeah, it just works. It's fab. So I know why you're passionate about this in terms of helping women, and I know you help men as well, but can you just tell me, like, obviously you've worked with women for years and years, but specifically over the last few years, as you've been focusing on financial well-being programs almost, like, what have you observed? Like, what have been the things that you think are the biggest challenges for women, and how have you and Laws and the team attempted to address that? Like, what have you observed? I'm just really curious to get your sort of lay of the land, like what is happening out there.
So there's a few things. First of all, so if I pick the three big things that I'm saying, first is mindset. So I absolutely believe that men and women approach money differently. And a lot of that is from the messages that we've received. So we speak as parents to kids differently about money. The media absolutely speaks to men and women differently. So Starling Bank research has come out. They studied a whole stack of different messaging to men and women, and they found that most of the messaging to men is that, you know, to use fear as a technique to empower men, and that you need to, money equals power, basically. But to women, 2/3 of the articles were that we need to cut back, or that we're excessive spenders. And it's why in the US, the Fidelity research study showed that 93% of people, when they were asked, are men better investors than women, said yes, of course they are. And I think that that's something that women inherently believe. And it's why I see way too many women abdicating finances to their partners, or pressing pause, thinking, you know what, when I find a partner, I'll then pick this up. Or as single women thinking, you know what, I just am not quite sure that this is possible. So therefore, I'm kind of just going to put my head in the sand and hopefully future me will come up with a solution. So for me, it's about undoing that messaging and actually having women realize it's simply not true. You know, longitudinal Warwick Business School studies showed that not only were women and men both great investors, they both beat what's called the index, but the women outperform the men.
Wow.
So we are inherently capable, and I see it time and time again. We just have to believe that we're capable. So one is mindset over what's possible. But two, one of the things I'm saying, and this is for, it doesn't matter what gender you are, is simply the cost of living and cost of rates.
Mm.
I think that there's a real fatigue that's happening where we got through the pandemic, and then to be hit with this double whammy of interest rates and inflation, I think people are really tired.
Yeah.
And we across the Western world, we have less than half of us are financially literate, which means we simply don't know what to do when it comes to rising interest rates and inflation. You know, we know to cut back. And a lot of people think, well, if I get a mortgage, I'll just concentrate on paying that off. But both of those aren't enough.
Yeah.
So people's stress levels when it comes to that, I'm finding really that's a huge thing across the Western world. But the third thing I think is just overwhelm. You know, it's not a lack of knowledge. It's because we have so much. We could Google anything when it comes to our finances, but it's a lack of understanding. And there are more and more and more tech and other things that are being created, like buy now, pay later, or investing apps. Like, we have so many financial solutions that it's almost problematic because we don't know which ones are good for us and which ones are bad for us and what should we be using. And here's 12 different investing apps, but I don't even understand investing, so I'm really not quite sure which one to use.
Yeah.
So they're three really big buckets that I see as problems at the moment.
Yeah, and I just love to touch on these because I'm like getting riled up thinking about it. So the first one, like in terms of, the media, like, well, obviously it affects women's mindset, but the media, and they do this in lots of ways, but specifically around money, advertising to men and women is just crazy. And I never knew that until you had shared that as well. And, you know, I just like to bring in something else that you do, because I actually believe you're trying to solve the problem of today through the programs that you're running, but you've also got Thinkers Inc., which we've not mentioned, but I just love to bring it in here because I feel as if that's one of the things you're also doing to help young people at a certain age start to learn those things earlier. So can you just mention Thinkers Inc., because I love it, and I'd love to just talk about it.
Absolutely. So with a good friend of mine, Rod Soper, I own a preschool called Thinkers Inc. And the idea is, what I know from when I was an accountant and working with thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs, is that often business owners weren't great at school because we think differently. And that's a generalization, but there are so many entrepreneurs that just simply weren't great at school because they aren't used to that sausage factory. And school conditions us to not think for ourselves and to rote learn. It's like it pushes all of that out of us. So we wanted to create something where from 3 to 5, you actually learn to creatively and critically think and take that agency as a gift all the way through school and be fundamentally changed by that. And we absolutely are seeing the difference in our little ones that are now 7 years later, about to head into high school. But for us, we lead with wellbeing.
Yeah.
Because if you have wellbeing, if you feel safe, and it's like anything, if you feel safe and if you're able to solve that problem for yourself, I mean, they're two gifts that if you gave that to anyone, I believe that would be fundamentally changed. So that's what we're doing in our school.
I love that. It's just so cool. Yeah, amazing. Thanks for sharing that and Thinkers Inc. And then the other thing my mindset I went off to is because you mentioned like mortgages, and people are like with this mindset of, I'll just get a mortgage and pay off my mortgage and just cut costs.
Yeah.
And I know that you know, when I was going through your program, I remember hearing you talk about mortgages and how, you know, I was definitely brought up with, that's the road to success. Like, you have to go to school, go to uni, get that job in the corporate company, work your way through the ladder and get a house and the mortgage. And I've always just felt a bit weird about it. Like, all of those things, even though I was in it, I was just like, and hence I've not got a house or got a mortgage. And I think that's just because I'm like, this doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't actually make a lot of sense. Can you talk about that? How I think every pair, like mostly from a certain generation, the sort of baby boomers right through, I mean, I'm Gen Y, right through to then, we've been taught to believe that that is the only way.
Definitely. And what I love more than anything else today is that we have choice and that we're talking about the different choices that we have.
Yeah.
But when it comes to property, we definitely have choice. And that is that as you said, more and more people are feeling like buying property is an itchy jacket. Whereas we still might have exposure to property. It just might be an investment rather than your home, which is called rent vesting. And you would then look at investing in shares and business as well. So it's not that we're opting out and not investing at all. We're just choosing that most people, one of their biggest assets are their home. And their mortgages are so large because it has to be the dream home that's all they're able to do.
Yeah.
And all they do is concentrate on paying it off and think, well, hopefully when I retire, that'll be enough. But unless we're prepared to sell our home or bring in a boarder, you can't eat your house.
Yeah, totally.
So it is about having your own home will definitely be right for some people, but it's not going to be right for everyone. And more people are realizing that. But if you choose not to own your own home, it is about, well, then you have to continue to invest.
Yeah.
You don't want to just rent and not do anything. It's choosing to continuing to invest.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And then the other thing, which we, again, have a shared passion for, is these, and I know it because I've been in it, where it's like buy now, pay later, or what's the other ones?
Yes, buy now, pay later. So Afterpay and Zipco
Afterpay,
and all those, and also the payday loans.
So can we talk about this? Because I feel the same. And I remember I was chatting to a few businesses that I'm close to, and they were like, we have to get this in, we have to get Afterpay. And I was like, no, please don't, don't do this, because I think it creates a certain type of behavior. And you can talk more to this, where you're never quite getting ahead. You're just literally, you just keep borrowing money and finding ways to borrow money to get these materialistic things that you more than likely don't need.
Yeah. I call Afterpay and buy now, pay later, and even credit cards lube for your spending, because the friction's gone. It quite literally, the amygdala region in our brain doesn't light up when we use it, so it hurts less. So how buy now, pay later works is, it's for payment. So what your brain does, it's called the framing effect. Instead of you thinking, for example, that I'm just spending $100 and there's no way I would lift that to 140, your brain only registers the payment of $25, and it has no problem lifting it to 35, which is then $140.
Yeah.
And it's this sneaky way of getting you to spend more. And you may be arguing, yes, but Mel, I've never paid a cent of interest. And yet if you go to Afterpay's own website, the US site says that you'll spend an average of 40% more. The Australian site says 18% more. So there is an interest paid, but it's done through your overspending. But more than that, it also goes on to say that you'll shop 50% more. So you'll actually shop more. So it's a way, and it's a really sneaky way of pulling money out of our wallets, pulling money off investments or ways that we choose to spend, and instead spending where potentially is out of alignment with our values, or even where we don't realize we're overspending.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what would you say with all the sort of observations you made, and we've called out in terms of people and women in particularly, and then knowing that all these other things happen in between, like, the challenges that people are going through, like, what would you say would be the sort of tips that you would give someone, and I think you categorize people in different places and where they're at. So it'd be good to sort of talk about that. So for those people categorized in different buckets, what would be the tips to sort of, what would be the next step? What could they do? Like, what could they do now if they're listening and they're recognizing all of this and they're pretty much in a bit of a pit financially?
So I hate that beauty at any age, and I hate what should you do in your 20s or 30s or 40s, or what should you wear in your 20s? And I think it's the same for your finances, because there's no longer a linear pathway.
No.
Instead, it's looking at where you're at or what your situation is, and what should my finance, or could my finances look like for that? So I'll give you a few examples. So if you're someone that just is deeply in bad debt, it doesn't matter your age or stage, you just have a lot of credit card debt or personal loans or buy now, pay later. It is it's cutting up and getting rid of those debts and accepting that you are someone that simply shouldn't have them. And that's okay. I believe 90% of us shouldn't. I don't. I shouldn't. In the same way, I can't have chocolate in the house. I can't have a credit card in my wallet.
Yeah.
Simple. Yeah. So it's recognizing that, cutting them up, choosing not to use that, and then working out a strategy to pay them back. So it might be a waterfall strategy where you start with the lowest balance. It might be choosing the highest interest rate. Do whatever motivates you, but then make a plan to pay them back as quickly as possible, preferably within 12 months. But if it needs to be longer than 12 months, you might look at zero interest credit cards or something like that to move that debt across so it gets paid off faster. If you are someone that is looking to buy that first investment, or it's a first job, or you haven't quite started yet, for me, it would be looking at your spending and making sure you don't have lifestyle creep. It's really easy to suddenly get really accustomed to having this income and thinking, there's no way that I could be earning any less than that. So challenging your spending, but starting with, what's the goal that you have? What are you excited about? Because if, for example, if you went, you know what, I love that idea, Mel. I only want to work for another 10 years, or I want the choice not to work after 10 years, then something like the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, might be amazing for you. And you might choose over the next few years to remove your cost of living entirely by house sitting or pet sitting and just go hard investing, knowing that that's the plan. Or that might not be for you at all, but you might decide to simply start investing, knowing that compounding and that time is that thing that's important for you. If you had a mortgage, I would be looking at paying a little bit more, potentially into an offset account, maybe an extra 1%, and investing. Because what we don't want to do is just press pause in a stage, whatever stage we're at, but actually making sure we have an and in there. So we're paying off our debt and we're looking at our goals. We're paying off our mortgage and we're investing in, say, shares or starting a side hustle or something like that. And then the older you get, so way too often I meet women in their 40s or 50s that are suddenly out of a relationship and they're having to start again. So if you're in a relationship abdicating responsibility to your finances, put your hand up and say, I want to be involved. And if your partner won't let you, for me, that's a red flag for you to go, this is not okay. I should be able to have these conversations. And if you are having to start again, it is realizing that it's possible, but you're going to have to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on investing, and I love this, do this. And so I feel as if I'm asking this because this is where I'm at. So,
I love that.
Yeah, I know. So so everyone knows I did actually do Mel's financial adulting program, which we'll put all the links in the show notes and stuff like that. And I'll share it on socials because I did it in 2021. I think I paid for it in 2020, actually did it in 2021. Let's say always the case. It's like, intentions there. Now we need to take action. So it took me a few months, but I got there. So top tip to anyone that does it or is thinking of doing it, please pay and do it.
Do it.
And do it. It's like, you need to. So it was and I remember texting Mel halfway through that program. It was like 8 weeks and I was like, oh my goodness, I've just had so many light bulb moments, but I think the significant one was around money and men, and the behaviors were exactly the same. I was like, unworthiness with money, unworthiness with men. Excellent. So I remember it brought up quite a few things. It wasn't just the money thing, which I thought was great. But I wanted to ask just around the investing piece. So obviously in my journey, when I started, I was very much at that very first stage. Like I have to clear the bad debt. I have to get, the credit cards and all that, which I literally was like, that was my only goal. And that's what I focused on. And now I feel as if I've done that and I'm a bit and I'm actually house sitting and completely remove costs. I've moved back to Scotland. I'm not paying any rent. So it's good. Amazing. But now I'm just like, eat. And I do want to start doing those things, but I can still feel this sort of mild fear around investing. Like, how can I, what are the platforms? What do I do? What's the next step? I can feel I want to do that. But I definitely feel there's still this slight fear.
So I think it's like anything, anytime you make a leap into something, it's nerve-wracking. Like even something as little as I was learning French last year, just for a tiny little moment. Yeah. I remember going across to Paris and being petrified to speak because I knew it was going to come out terribly, and I would just keep diverting to English. Like it was ridiculous. Yeah. But I think as humans, we just wanted to get it right, or we want it to be perfect. And when it comes to money, there's already such fear that we're going to get it wrong, that we're even more hesitant to leap. So if that's you, so I would suggest a couple of things. One, there are games that you can play online. So, for example, the Australian share market has a game where you can play it and actually start to get familiar with not real money. So that's one. Yeah. But another thing that you might do is you've got to sit down and work out what are the goals I'm excited about. Yeah. And if you look at it and go, right, one of them is I really want to own property. So therefore the deposit's going to be X that I need. I would also sit down and go, great, but also I want to learn about investing in the meantime. And how we might learn is you might think, I'm going to put every dollar I can into that property deposit, but I'm going to use cash rewards apps to find money, or I'm going to give myself a challenge to find more income in a month, and then use that money to invest in an app. And I'm just going to put really simple parameters around my investing. It might be I have to have ownership. So I need to have ownership. It can't be custodial ownership, meaning I can transfer to another platform. It needs to have low fees. It needs to have an ethical investment. And I just want a broad exchange traded fund. So you might have a few parameters. They'll be yours, not mine. And then you might just start. But because you're starting with money that's outside of your normal wage or normal business, that can feel less risky. But being able to automate it. So my other tip is automating it so it just simply happens. So once you choose it, automating a regular amount that just happens is much easier than you having to press that go button every single month. Yeah, totally. Finding
it's a subscription.
Starting.
Once it's set, the subscription happens and you're none the wiser, but you know that you've allocated that amount. So you know that you can do it. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you. I know we've covered that off before, but I was just like, I feel as if I need to hear this again.
So happy to say it again.
Thanks, Mel. And so I'd love to just talk about, because you've got your next, and do you know what? It's funny, every time I share your post, I always get a few people message me asking questions about the financial add-on program. And I think some of them have signed up, but some of them haven't. So if you're listening again, this may be your sign. because I've done it and I've lived it. And I know Mel so well, and I trust Mel and I trust you. And I just got so many benefits from it. And even now I still think about it and things that were said, and you can delve back into the program as well by paying the sort of subscription. So I would just love for you to share, because I think you're opening up. You only open up twice a year, is that right?
3 times a year.
3 times a year. Yeah, so this is the last of the year.
September's the last one of this year.
Okay. Can you talk a bit about it for people that have never heard about it before, or maybe they have and are still thinking about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had almost 3,000 people go through it and had the most life-changing results around savings and debt payback and houses purchased and shares invested. So we have the tangible results. But what we do is, I believe that too often a financial approach is just go and do this. And I think people wish they could just give me the 7 steps that I can just go do. But as you explained, sometimes that feels like an itchy jacket that we know is just not right for you. And it's not, you're going to abandon it at some point. Yeah. So I've created a program based on what I did for myself and what I used to do for my clients, where it is personalized and actually financially empowering and transformative. So it starts with understanding who you are. So your money mindset, your money story, and your money type. Because I believe there's 4 different money types, and you discover that in the course. Then we look at you creating your very own financial strategic plan. So this is facing where I am, what I have, what I'm bringing in, what's going out. So it's not a budget. It's just looking at what I have and what's going out. And then maybe for the first time asking, what do I want? Like, what are my goals? What would get me excited? Where do I want to be in the next 3 to 5 years, or that next significant birthday? And what does that mean for the next 12 months? And then understanding things like paying down debt, finding more cash, because a lot of us think it's tightening your belt, but it's actually learning how to find more cash. Then we have the money habits that are actually right for you. So understanding your money type, what are the things you should be doing, including different bank accounts and automating, but also what should a worker do? What should a discerner do? A relator, a creator? And then what we do now is we pause for a week, and we have a workroom where you can come and just do and get that giant spreadsheet done, and Lawsy's there, so no one is left behind. And it's like a pause
that's so good.
in it.
That's
so
amazing.
We listen to our community and gone, right, pause. And then the final 3 weeks are investing. So investing in shares, property, and business.
Love it.
So that you don't just have, oh, what should I be doing? How can I get there? You actually understand how to do it. And we supplement this with, it's all beautifully curated and beautifully shot and videos and content. But then we also do a live Q&A every single week with me. We ask for questions beforehand, and I just answer either questions from information in the course, or maybe a headline that you saw that week, or you're just really stressed about what interest rates are doing, or you just want my take on something. And I answer that, as well as you being inside our closed Facebook group. That is the most incredible supportive community. And I've had people say that group is worth the price of the admission.
Totally.
Alone. We're having, we're at the end of a round at the moment. And like always, there's people that need to catch up. One of the members has created a catch-up club, and they're jumping on Zoom and working together, and like it's just beautiful. And every round someone will just do that. But this round, what we're doing is we're running free money hit training. So, hit training is you have that short, sharp hit of exercise, that high intensity exercise. We're doing that for your finances. So it's 4 days, super sharp, one around goals and understanding the number that's actually something you're excited about, debt, investing, and then a Q&A with me, which I don't do anywhere except inside the program, and also with some of the financial rock stars that have been part of it. So you can actually hear what other people have done.
I love it.
So that's all completely free, so that you can actually get a bit of a taste for what we're about.
That's amazing. I love those additions. I love the working group and just working together, so make sure no one's left behind, because I definitely felt like that at points. I was like, especially when I was starting. So it's good that you've got that. That's amazing. And the catch-up club, brilliant. So cute, right? And I love that they even called it that. The catch-up. I'm like, that is so genius. And you're right, that group, I do like pop into it when I'm thinking like, okay, I want to get an idea about this or ask a question. And even just being in the group and seeing the chats, it's just so good, because everyone's helping one another. And they making share their wins and losses. Which, I mean, where do we share our money wins? Who can we share them with? Exactly. Or how can we share the losses to go, I'm really struggling with this. Is anyone else struggling? And just to see the love or the sharing from the community. Yeah, it's beautiful. You've really created a beautiful community. Thank you, Mel, because I remember when I didn't feel that I could really share with anyone else, because I was like, even when I paid down all that debt, so everything that I sort of worked towards, and I remember like drafting the post ready to put it in that group, because I was like, these people will get it. They'll get how significant this is. Because we're all sort of in it, no matter what stage we're at, we're all in it together, and we all are actively taking part in this program to do something about it, So I remember when you did that, because I think you DM'd me it as well. It was I've closed the account. And I get those all the time, and it never gets old. I'm like, you did. It's empowering. You're just like, done. That's it. Done. Closed. But it's all those steps that are so powerful, and you can just feel the energy. Like even with us, like talking about it, like you just start to get more excited about money and wealth and financials. Like I said at the beginning, I sort of hated spreadsheets, but now I'm like. In fact, the other day I was like, I need to get my spreadsheet out to check something. Like I have another spreadsheet for Arbon now, and I'm like, and Like I actually, that exercise where we did just put everything in, your ins and inputs and outputs with no emotional attachment. That's when I started to make decisions, because I could see my biggest outs were a car and rent. And I'm like, okay, let's get rid of it. I don't need that car, and I'm hardly even using it now. So let's take that away. And I remember a car shared for a while. Somebody gave me a van for 3 months. Like,
I know, exactly. We don't realize the options we have.
Options.
Yep.
And even now, I'm house sitting. I'm doing my first house sit next week in this stunning property over near Edinburgh, right onto a beach. And not only that, the women that I've met, we're just totally on the same wavelength. I'm like, we're going to do stuff together. She's got like a teepee thing out in her garden. And just the other week,
wow, I
was talking about this. I was like, what do they call it? There's a name for it, which I didn't even know until the other week, but I was like, I want it. It's not a teepee, but it's called a turbot or something. Anyway. So like, it's just funny when you open your mind to have different sort of, you make an empowering decision, and then it opens up your mind, and then you start to look for, or other stuff just finds you. You're like, oh yeah, I'll do that. Like having a change of scenery. So going over there for like 10 days and I'm not paying anything and I'm getting some puppy love. Like, what's not to love? And I work from home. So, it just it's all great. I love it. And I love the energy that you've brought with this program. So I highly, highly recommend it.
I love that.
And so Mel, just to wrap up, I could chat to you all day as if we're just get these cups of tea out. I know it's your evening now, but let's just get the cuppa out. I'll just sit here all morning. I just did a chat with Mel for like 3 hours. Is there anything you feel that you'd love to share with people right now? Is there any message that you feel you would just like to share with people right now?
Yeah, I really feel like people are definitely feeling fatigued, and they're definitely feeling overwhelmed. And even if things are going well for me, but I just don't think I can keep pushing, or I'm so tired of struggling and I just want a reprieve. And I'm just tempted to, I know I've got credit card debt, or I know that I've been really saving for this thing, but I just want to take it all and actually just enjoy myself.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage you to say that, not to do that. And to say that you can have choice today. You can enjoy today and have choice tomorrow, but you've got to learn how to have great finances so that you can do that, because it is possible to enjoy today without blowing up your life. And it is possible to still look after your future self without just skimping and saving today. I mean, your example is a perfect example. So having that financial knowledge, empowering yourself, whether it's through my program or just choosing today to start taking that first step that you should take, I just want to encourage you to do that.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Mel. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you for everything you do. I have 100% got your back.
Yeah,
just
thank
love,
you,
love
right back at you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Remember, download the Yoga Nidra right after this episode. Make sure you have a listen. It's the most beautiful guided meditation that will regenerate your mind, your body, and your soul. Take care. See you soon.